Before I tell you what this next topic is, I called Bull yesterday to make sure he was okay with doing this topic. He gave me the thumbs up on it. We had to do it when Jay was in. I've been saving this for a day that you both were on set.
Asking if I was okay with it?
I knew I know you'd be okay doing this topic. This has been floating around on social media.
I've been waiting to do this topic all year.
We have put on our community tab on the YouTube page this poll. Yeah. It has over 2,000 votes. So I'm going to give you the results of the poll at the end. I want to see if what the community over 2,000 votes matches what you guys think. But the question is, where would the Browns be today? And we're looking at the 3-year period. If they had never moved on from Baker Mayfield, which means Deshaun Watson, and that whole trade would never have happened, where would the Browns be? Just so you guys understand what I put on YouTube, the 4 options were win a Super Bowl, have multiple playoff wins, have just one playoff win, or have no playoff wins, which is their current status. You can take it wherever you want, but where would the Browns be right now?
Who would you like to start this? One end of the spectrum or the other?
Go ahead. Let's start with Jay.
Yeah.
Let's go around the horn, Jay, and we'll make our way down the board.
I couldn't get to 2 playoff wins because he's only been gone for
3 years.
This is his 3rd season. So there would have only been 2 playoffs. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I could go with he would have taken the team to the playoffs in each of those 2 years and won at least one playoff game. But I feel very, very comfortable in saying they'd have at least one playoff win. And here's part of that equation. To truly answer this question, you can't just say, well, let's take Deshaun Watson out and put Baker Mayfield in. To truly answer this question, you have to do this. We're going to put Baker Mayfield back. We're going to put 3 first-round draft picks back onto the roster that the Browns currently don't have, that the Texans do. You're going to take 3 other draft picks, all within the 4th round. So you're adding 6 new
I don't think it was
picks.
6. Was it 6?
It was 6, but we gave up a pick also. So it ended up being a net gain of 5 for Houston. But we got a 6th round pick back.
Okay.
I mean, what'd we do with that player? He's probably selling insurance right now. So it's not just a Baker for Deshaun, which, by the way, would have been a plus sum anyhow. That would have been a gain. It would have been Baker and 3 first-round draft picks and 3 more draft picks that would have been selected 4th round or earlier. So that is certainly enough to make a difference. Remember, Baker last year, with a team that was predicted to win 5 games by most experts before the season, took them to the playoffs, won a playoff game, and had Detroit on the ropes at Detroit in their playoff loss. So it's not too much to expect that he would have won at least one playoff game over the last 2 years. This team, with bad quarterbacking and all kinds of quarterbacking last year, made it to the playoffs. So I got at least one.
So can you give me the options again? 2 playoff wins, 1 playoff win, and what else?
No playoff wins or Super Bowl.
For me, it would probably be somewhere in between. I would go with 1 playoff win, and I rationalize it like this. So Baker gets hurt, and then he comes back. You look at what he did in Carolina. He didn't play well there, but the Browns team would have probably had a better roster around here than the Carolina Panthers, so I don't think he would have struggled that much. There was a time where he was in Carolina, he was with the Rams. He struggled in those 2 cities or whatever the case may be, but you have to take into consideration those are new offenses and he's getting used to new people. And again, the roster isn't going to be as good as it probably would have been if they were building it in Cleveland. However, I do think that because he had those issues with those 2 teams and he was on the verge of being out of the league, I think he changed his mindset in the way he went and approached the game. I think he's a much better player in terms of the way he thinks about the game, his decision making. He's still prone to interceptions, but I think that changed him a little bit as well. And plus, on top of it, I think that the weapons he has, to a certain extent, are very helpful. They have a nice left tackle. They got two good receivers. They got guys that know how to play the game. They
have one good receiver right now.
Well,
Godwin, with Godwin being out.
Godwin's out, but Godwin.
Evans is a Hall of Fame receiver.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Fame. And Godwin played last year, some for him. So,
no, he did. Yeah.
So I would say he would probably end up with one playoff win. I can't go to 2 because I think he'd have been getting back to what he wanted to do and coming back off the injury, and I think he would have been a little bit
So we're in the same spot.
But he probably would have one playoff win.
Yeah, I would say I have a playoff win. I actually would probably say 2 playoff wins.
I couldn't get there, but I was close.
Yeah, and it's partly because I see what he's done.
Now, if you would have thrown this year in, so you would have 3 seasons with a guy who knows the system, because remember, the one thing that's been constant about Baker Mayfield is change.
Yeah.
Look at the number of coordinators he's had, more than he's been years in the league. So I think that you would have been more familiar with Kevin Stefanski's team, and the thought is that he'd be better in year 2, be better in year 3, provided that he was healthy.
Yeah, I think that first off, I was wrong about Baker. Did
you want him out?
I did.
I didn't know that.
And I was overly critical at the time because he didn't perform well, and I thought his attitude was poor.
That's true, though.
Yeah, that was true.
It was. Yeah. But with me saying that, and all that I think was true, but I think his performance was based a lot more off of the injury than I really wanted to lend merit to.
I think that is
okay. And because when he came back from the injury, it looks like the guy that we drafted, the guy that was you watched that game against Georgia, the semifinals. Before you mentioned that Georgia lost the final, but the point is Baker's a hell of a player. Is he a top 5 player in the league at quarterback? Probably not.
I don't have him top 5.
But it doesn't matter because you don't have to be to win games and to win playoffs. You
can win a Super Bowl without a top 5 quarterback.
He's a good enough quarterback, I think, to win a Super Bowl with. I think he's is good. Like if you're the Lions, you think you have a quarterback that can get. I mean, he's already been to one, and Jared Goff. I think that Baker can do what Goff is doing, somewhat similar. I mean, Goff has way better weapons than Baker in Tampa Bay. He's throwing to Cade Otton.
He's not a bad player.
He's fine.
Yeah,
he's a fine player, but he's not.
You know what's developed in this
St. Brown
in Tampa that's really helped Baker is a run game.
Yeah,
Bucky's running wild, and I think Baker's really benefited from that.
So, with that being said, I think Baker would probably win a game or 2 in the playoffs here. I think I said 2, but the other thing I would say is I don't know if Baker's mental game, if he'd be as humble right now. And so that to me
is the catalyst.
That's the immeasurable. That's the immeasurable.
It's an intangible.
I do think that he was humbled and being shipped around like a baseball.
The Carolina thing,
4 teams in 4 years. Yeah. That can humble a guy. Actually, 4 teams in 3 years.
No question.
So I think that helped him grow up.
I told my buddy the other day who loved Baker when he was here. I'm like, dude, you got to go watch a post-game press conference with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, it's different.
Just go look one up. Go on YouTube, find one, and just listen to him talk.
Yeah.
It's a different guy.
Yeah. It is amazing how off you guys are. The Browns would have won at least 3 playoff games right now and would be winning more this year. I don't know where you guys are talking about these 1 playoff wins.
Well, it's only been 2 years, Bull.
I know that, but they would have won way more playoffs than just 1 game.
Where do you see that at?
Are you being sarcastic?
No, because C.J. Stroud would be the quarterback of the Browns had they not traded for Deshaun Watson. Forget Baker. Baker would have played out his 5th year here. He would have walked off into the sunset, maybe signed with the Bucs, maybe signed with the Raiders. I don't know. The Browns, like the Texans, the Browns would have had a high draft pick because they wouldn't have been very good in 22 as they weren't in 21. They would have been traded up for C.J. Stroud and would have drafted C.J. Stroud.
So he had,
and he would have won multiple playoff games because the Browns had
a pony for Christmas.
Well, we're all just guessing, though. Why is mine any different?
Your guess didn't just include him being on the Browns; it included him sucking for 2 years, and then us trading up to draft for C.J. Stroud.
I don't know that they would have had to trade up, but they could have.
C.J. Stroud is how many years in the NFL?
This is his 2nd year.
Okay, so you're saying that he would have won 3 games last
exaggerating
year.
on the playoff games.
He would have won the Super Bowl.
I was trying to make you think I was saying Baker was going to win those playoff games.
That's why he said, are you being sarcastic?
I was exaggerating. But no, I think they very well could have had C.J. Stroud. I think Baker would have played here one more year. Baker had a terrible attitude after that last season. First of all, it's revisionist history. Yes, the trade turned into a disaster. At the time of the trade, Dustin, you can apologize all you want. At the time of the trade, Deshaun Watson was a way better quarterback than Baker
100%.
Mayfield.
I remember.
And nobody could debate that.
Bull,
No,
I don't even think that was the debate then. That's not why I hated the trade. I hated the trade for the assets that we were giving up.
Mm-hmm.
But
so here's what, Bull, it can't just be he's a little bit better or even a lot better.
Yeah.
He has to be better than Baker Mayfield, 3 first-round draft picks, and 3 more draft picks that are better than the 4th round.
At the time, the trade made total sense.
It didn't.
Well, it didn't work out.
It didn't make total sense at the time, and it doesn't make total sense now.
It made total sense at the time because they felt like they needed an elite quarterback. You say you could win without an elite quarterback.
Here's why it makes
How
sense,
many teams have won without an elite quarterback recently?
Still, you're going to be without 3 first-round draft picks
matter.
for the next 3 years.
You need to have the elite
It
quarterback.
doesn't matter?
No, not if they would have hit.
He was seen as a top 3 quarterback.
So here's what I think Bull's trying.
I had him as a top 3 ever.
Okay, but the league did.
I don't know that the league had him as a top 3.
I think that Browns fans, the Browns front office, Andrew Berry, Haslam, you, me, and most other fans thought that Deshaun Watson was the cheat code.
Yes.
It was the game shark. Remember the game shark back in the day? Yeah. That was what Deshaun Watson was going to be. It was going to be this easy way out. It was going to be hit the easy button, and now we're going to buy some wins, baby.
Yeah, but what's the saying? Every time you think there's an easy way and a shortcut, it never works out that way.
Exactly, and we were wrong.
Well,
but in the moment, to the point when we sorry.
Yeah, no,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
In the moment, the picks didn't matter. It was irrelevant because we got the player. It was like this player's going to make us win. And we were all hoodwinked.
We didn't have a lot of history of the picks not mattering, but we did have one test case in Herschel Walker. Picks matter. Picks didn't
but it was
matter.
a running back
That's for a running back.
It doesn't matter. You're still giving up picks. It doesn't matter what you're getting. It matters what you're giving up.
So right now, if the Bills offered Josh Allen for 5 first-round picks, you wouldn't do it?
No, I would not do it. I'm sorry. I went for 5 first-round draft picks.
5 first-round picks, I would do it.
I'm sorry. I'm not.
If you ask me, Josh Allen for 3 first-round picks.
Wait, no, 3?
Yeah, this is Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, he has 5.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
take my next 5 drafts.
See, here's the problem with that. I also there is a little bit more of a test case because once upon a time, Mike Ditka said, "Take my whole draft, give me Ricky Williams."
Another running back.
That's a bad comparison. Those are for running backs.
It's all we have historically. We don't have a lot of these, but what we have is now. You're right. It wasn't for elite quarterbacking play, but let's face it. At the time, running backs were the build around
they weren't
piece.
worth what a quarterback's worth now.
No, they're not. But at the time, they were the build around piece. Clearly,
But Jay,
Mike Ditka was a smart football guy. He said, "Take it all."
What do you say to the people that say, "Listen, Jay, that's great. These are lottery picks. These are lottery tickets." And the Cleveland Browns got multiple picks in the first round, and they swing and miss. I've seen Deshaun Watson play. I've seen him throw for his yards. I've seen him go to the top 10. This is something we have put our eyes on versus something that is a mythical thing that we've seen the Cleveland Browns miss on quarterbacks for 30 years. Don't you think people would be excited to see somebody that is a proven commodity and everyone thinks
no question about it? I said at the time, this move will energize the fan base, and that's it. And that's what it did. And to the point of draft picks not mattering, I don't know when that became a thing, but
they do.
To the point of draft picks not mattering, you're going to extrapolate out 5 years, you're going to put Josh Allen on a football team that doesn't have a first-round draft pick. That's really hard to win that way. Football is a quarterback game, but it's also a team game. Look at the Cincinnati Bengals. They've got the cheat code. They're 6-8. They got a terrible defense.
It's one season.
And they didn't have to mortgage their future of giving a lot. They just did it out of pure incompetence. They forgot that you got to build a defense too. It's a team sport. And all I'm saying is...
Yeah, but you're using one example. The Bengals had been, Burrow got hurt last year. They still finished over 500.
Yeah.
And the 3 years before that, they went to the playoffs with him.
They were in the Super Bowl.
Sure, listen. And he was asked, how long is the window open? His response was, as long as I'm on the team.
And he's right.
He's right.
He might want that back right now.
No, he's right.
Because he's on the team this year, and their Super Bowl window isn't open.
You don't go to the Super Bowl every year, Jay.
Listen, I know you don't, but you also don't want to take a step back that's 6 and 8.
Let me ask you this, Jay.
Their defense is flawed.
Jay, let me ask you this. If the Bengals somehow grab the last playoff spot.
Possible.
Okay.
Extremely possible. They've got a favorable schedule.
Yeah,
okay. Now, but they still need either the Chargers or Broncos to lose all their games, one of the two, which is probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if they make the playoffs,
yes.
Who would you pick? Who do you think's got a better chance of winning the Super Bowl, the Bengals or the Steelers?
Steelers.
I think the Bengals easy.
No, the Bengals defense is absolute garbage.
But
it's got.
Well, who are they going to stop?
It doesn't matter. The Steelers.
It doesn't matter.
The Steelers can't keep up with the other great offenses.
It doesn't matter in the playoffs. I've seen
it. It does matter in the playoffs because the Steelers haven't won squat.
Yeah, but Bull, when the playoffs come around, particularly if you're hosting games like Pittsburgh will be, if you're hosting a game and you get a weather game, now this is exactly what you live for. Your team is built for that. Whoever comes in here may not be built for that.
Steelers have had a great defense for a decade. They haven't won anything. They haven't won anything.
Listen,
the Bengals play in Ohio. They don't play in Florida.
I love the Bengals offense. I love them.
Yeah.
But their defense is putrid.
It is bad. It's a little. It's actually a little better right now than it was earlier in the season. It's still bad.
Their defense was, I thought, great 2 years ago. I did. I thought they had an up-and-coming defensive coordinator, and I was nervous. I said, "Oh my God, when are the Browns going to be able to compete in this division?"
But my point is that as a Bengals fan, and it's been a shit franchise like the Browns.
Right, it has.
But right now, as a Bengals fan, you always feel like you have a chance to win.
You do.
Because
You
of
have
Joe
much
Burrow.
more of a chance than we do.
Even though it's been a disappointing season.
Here's the difference, Bull.
Yeah.
To get them, all they had to do was colossally suck 1 year.
I got you. But in the end,
they didn't have to say take the next 3 first-round draft picks.
And that's not ideal, obviously. But in the end, you would, if Deshaun Watson had played here, which he couldn't have played worse than he has.
Right.
If he had played here like he did in Houston, we wouldn't have cared about those first-round picks.
So let's judge the talent on this football team right now. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Let's judge the talent on this football team right now, minus the quarterback. Let's judge it. Defense, where are we?
Well, today it looks a lot different, but all of a sudden, like before the season began, everyone was writing about the Browns like this roster.
I know, but here's the problem.
God.
Here's the problem with that. Everybody in Cleveland was saying that.
No.
We discussed on this show, why is the national media not in on the Browns?
Because the quarterback.
Week after week we said, wow, CBS Sports has the Browns ranked 14th.
Because of quarterback.
Right. But
everybody nationally was saying the Browns have a great roster besides the quarterback.
And what I'm saying is, everybody said this year, well, it's all on Deshaun Watson.
Right.
We've got everything else.
Yeah.
Fact is, we don't. The fact is, the talent level on this football team is below average.
I don't agree with that.
They've got 3 wins.
It's
below average. Defense is a head scratcher. How did this defense perform so well last year?
That's why you build by the quarterback and not a defense. Well, because defenses are up and down.
Here's the problem. We talked about this too, even earlier on Monday this week. We talked about, this is the thing with the Jim Schwartz defense. Houston exposed it with the misdirection. And what's the game plan?
Well, Jim Schwartz has been in the league forever.
And he's never had sustained success.
Is that true? I'm not sure.
Well, where has he been?
I don't know.
Look at his resume. Then
why is he such a genius and keep getting jobs?
He's a genius because he comes in and shakes things up, and I think installs a new defense that works momentarily. But there's an answer to what he does.
I don't know.
I just think when you look at it, you can say these picks and you can tremendously value these picks. But you got to understand, I've been here when they had 2 first-round picks and took Cam Irving and
Justin Gilbert and Baker Mayfield and Johnny Manziel.
So
we don't know. Listen,
you're right.
Those picks.
In fact, if you're going to make an assumption, you'd have to make an assumption that the Browns would have screwed those picks up.
Yes, at least a couple of them.
But you know what? I think I would rather have screwed up first-round picks. No picks.
I will never blame a team for going for it. They went for it. They failed.
And you know what?
They failed. Now,
it's a difference in philosophy. Because I remember at the time you said, you got a chance to get an elite quarterback, you do it no matter what.
That's right.
And I just remember sitting here wide-eyed going, no, you don't.
And even though that trade is looks crazy, But change the names out, and if the Browns had an opportunity to go right back in and do the same thing with the same amount of picks, I would tell them, yes, do it again.
Yes.
If it was Josh Allen,
how
Lamar
many
Jackson,
teams
Joe
in recent
Burrow,
years have won without an elite quarterback?
pull the trigger.
Not many.
No. Pull the trigger.
Wow. I couldn't.
Because I would tell my coaching staff, it's up to you to develop in the late rounds to find people. Where the Browns mess up is they miss on the top picks and then don't develop any of the secondary
Who's
picks.
the last, in the last 10 years, is Nick Foles the only non-Hall of Fame quarterback to win a Super Bowl?
Well, I mean, Brady has won, and Mahomes won. What does Mahomes have? 3 now?
3.
Mm-hmm. 3 in the last 4 years?
Yeah.
4?
2 in a row.
Foles
so he's got a nice little
Foles
solid grip on it.
won.
You know what's interesting
And
to
Foles
me
played
about,
at an extremely high
I don't
level
know
in
that
that
Kansas City's
postseason.
going to win it this year. I wouldn't bet on Kansas City to win it. I like
Well,
Buffalo.
nobody would have bet him on
I like Buffalo
bet
a
him on.
lot.
And
No.
that's another Hall of Fame
I wrote
quarterback.
them off last year. A lot of teams did, and they found the switch. That's why do that at your own peril this year. But I still think we all agree, even with the stats and looking at the stats, if it's the fourth quarter of a playoff game and it's late and you're down 3,
You know what it is.
I think 32 general managers and 32 head coaches would say, give me 15.
You know what it is.
I want Patrick Mahomes.
There it is.
And so, yes, that's a huge difference. However, I do think that I said this at the time, got murdered for it. I thought that Deshaun Watson certainly had success in the NFL. The one thing I didn't love about Deshaun Watson's resume when he came here, okay, if he's an elite quarterback, why does his team always suck?
That wasn't true. The 3 years that he played the whole season,
made the
they went to the playoffs twice.
How many wins?
That's not what you said. You said, you said that why does his team suck? His team didn't suck.
Listen, we can win a playoff game and we can not make
Jay,
the playoffs.
you
and we
just
suck.
said you're the one. No, you don't suck if you make the playoffs and lose a game.
Are we in it to make the playoffs or are we in it to win the Super Bowl? Because when we made the
So-
trade, you said we're not
So
in it to
every
make the
team
playoffs.
sucks besides the Super Bowl winner?
No,
That's what you're just
but
saying.
if you're going to trade for a quarterback that has
Yeah.
a resume,
Yeah.
I need something on
He
his
had played
resume
3
that
years.
shows we've got a lot of team success with this guy.
And they had.
And I also
they
made
had
the
2
point
good,
that
really good years.
I felt
Yeah.
from watching his games, and I did not watch every game, but the games that I watched with Deshaun Watson, many of them, they were down 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and he was throwing the ball all over the place.
Hold on.
Again, they made the playoffs 2 out of 3 years.
I remember this game vividly when the Browns went to Houston. They had Baker Mayfield, and Deshaun Watson smoked us. They put
Listen,
points
I'm not saying he didn't smoke teams.
but I'm just saying.
What was his record his last full year in Houston?
Here's
Yeah,
what
they
I
had a bad season
Here's
that
what
year.
I just.
Okay, so
I
it's his
always
fault.
caution.
So I guess Joe Burrow's at fault for the
always
Bengals
caution
being 6
this.
and 8.
No, but it's partly his fault.
Two things.
No, it's zero
things
Joe
can be
Burrow's
true.
fault. Zero.
2 things can be true.
No, I'm talking
yes,
about Deshaun.
Deshaun Watson
what's the
did not
difference?
work out. Deshaun Watson didn't work out. But
Yeah.
we don't have to minimize the fact that he was at one point in time good.
Let me ask you this.
The last 10 Super Bowls have been won by 9 elite quarterbacks.
What organization would you rather be today? Because this might actually answer the question in the best way.
Yeah.
Houston or Cleveland?
Of course you'd rather Houston. They got Stroud.
Okay.
They got a quarterback.
But they've been a terrible organization, too.
And they got
No,
third
I'm saying right
receivers.
now and moving forward.
Because they got CJ Stroud.
I'm not measuring this at all on the history of the organization.
Yeah.
I'm measuring it. You can choose right now. You can push a button and everything in Houston comes to Cleveland and everything in Cleveland goes to Houston. 100 out of 100 people are going to tell you, give me Houston. Which organization?
But what does that have to do with anything?
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Which organization is stronger and which organization is weaker after the trade?
Obviously, Houston's in better shape.
Okay.
But nobody's arguing that the trade is a good trade now.
We
Most people,
just
the
saying that's
majority of people thought it was a smart trade at the time.
Everybody did.
They were wrong.
We were
Of
wrong.
course.
That's it.
Okay.
Nobody's arguing with
So
that.
it's okay for those same people to be wrong now. You even said that, the Browns would have sucked and they would have traded Baker and they would have let him go in his last year of his deal. He would have walked.
Yes.
Okay.
They were.
It's okay for you to be wrong on that too.
I could be. We will never know.
We will never know.
We won't. But
Now,
what we've
Baker
seen,
did suck that year.
What we've seen, the narrative is that he sucked that year.
Yes, he did.
But here's what I watched that
Yeah.
year. In the first game of the year, Carolina-Cleveland. Carolina's predicted to win 2 games. The Browns are picked to go to the playoffs.
I love how Jay remembers the predictions of every team in the league and how many games they were predicted to
Bull,
win.
how many games was Carolina?
I don't know.
Come on, before the season started,
Yeah.
everybody was saying the same thing. Carolina's got nobody.
And so they didn't win anything with him. They cut him. He was so bad they cut him.
Minus a crescendo moment by a player
did he
in his
play well
first
there?
pro game. Wait a minute.
Okay.
Minus a crescendo moment by a rookie kicker.
Yeah.
Baker beats Cleveland on that game.
Did he play well there, though? No.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
Now, what happened was, this is what I write it off to, I don't know that anybody can be successful in Carolina.
That's ridiculous.
They're a nightmare.
People could have said that about Cincinnati before
They're a
Burrow.
nightmare.
Cam Newton did all right.
No, Carolina today.
Well, here's what I'm saying.
I'm not talking about Carolina then.
In that game, he lost to Jacoby Brissett. That wasn't like he lost to Jacoby Brissett in that game.
Let me give you some
He had a fourth quarter drive.
Let me give you some bottom lines here. Bottom lines. Whatever would have happened. Whatever would have happened with Baker, the Browns obviously looking back, would obviously have been in better shape had they not traded for Watson. What would have happened with Baker? Whether Baker would have ended up staying here long term or not, they would have most likely been in better shape either way. Which is obvious now.
But you're right.
Yeah.
But also, part of the factual discussion around this is we're talking about, by your own admission, a transaction that will go down, or at least currently is, the worst in the history of team sports.
I don't know if it's the worst in the history of team sports.
We discussed it one time, and you said, I'd have to call it that.
I don't. Maybe I said that. I don't know.
You did, because I tried to
it's certainly one of the worst. I don't know if it matters if it's absolutely number one. Go ahead.
It doesn't. To me, it's the worst ever.
Okay.
Ever. And I'm not alone. Other people have said that too. We're talking about that trade. And the player we gave up is about to win his second straight division title.
Well, that player was not in that trade, so that's not accurate. He wasn't in the trade.
He was the impetus to make that trade.
Because of his poor behavior after the season.
I don't care what it was.
Yeah.
The organization had decided, not you, him.
I blame Baker for the whole thing.
Actually, to be true,
if Baker had not been immature, he probably would have stayed the Browns quarterback.
And according to many sources, Baker refused to talk to the Cleveland Browns.
That's true.
I can't blame him.
Well,
no, before they traded for Watson.
There were discussions about a contract extension between the Browns.
There wasn't.
I'm told there was.
All right.
Have you not heard from other people that covered the team that there was?
No. Why would they have given Baker an extension then?
They were talking about an extension.
It doesn't make any sense.
And the reason that the Browns pulled away from the table was because Baker's team's number was far bigger than they wanted to spend.
At that point, what had Baker done to earn a contract extension?
He set a record for the most touchdown passes ever by a rookie quarterback.
That was 4 years earlier.
Well, you've asked me what he's done. I'm going to try to tell you.
I mean, that's not enough to get a contract extension.
He broke the longest losing streak in franchise history.
That doesn't get you an extension.
He took the team to the playoffs for the first time in a gajillion years and won a playoff game for the first time.
None of those are reasons to give a guy an extension.
Well, you asked me what he did. I just told you.
I'm just saying, in my opinion, none of those are reasons to give a guy an extension.
So this guy comes in and breaks all of these long-time franchise nastiness.
Yeah.
And that's not a reason to hold on to him.
Well, you just said unless you win a Super Bowl, you suck. So
No.
That's what you said before.
No. Listen, you can't win a Super Bowl before you make the playoffs.
Why not? That's not true.
How do you How do you win the Super Bowl without making the playoffs?
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying you have to make the playoffs and then another year go to the Super Bowl.
No, what I'm saying is there's steps to it.
Okay.
This was in the...
Do you think Baker will ever win a Super Bowl?
And then we got Super Chats.
I think there's a possibility he could.
All right.
I think if I'm going to list all the quarterbacks right now that have a chance to win a Super Bowl, his name would be on that list.
How many people on that list? 25?
No, probably 12.
You think he's a top 12 quarterback?
I do.
I don't think so.
He's got 3,600 passing yards, over 30 touchdowns.
That's not impressive. 3,600 passing yards is not.
He's got 3 games to play.
Okay, you're saying 3,600 as if that's 4,600.
No. At the end of the season, it could be 4,500.
He's also second in the league in interceptions. That's a problem.
It is a problem, and that's why I'm not.
And that's why ultimately he's going to fail when it matters, in my opinion.
Bull, what I would tell you is they haven't lost since the bye. They've figured out how to win without Godwin and Evans. Evans is playing at an all-time Hall of Fame level right now. But when I watch Baker play, he's still maddening for me. But I watched him make throws last week against a team that boat raced us, and we couldn't score against. And I'm watching him dropping dimes, 50 yards, 30 yards, 20, 10.
I thought
Big
last
plays.
week was his most impressive game in a while. Because in the last 2 months, 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
Really go back to the injuries.
He's either beaten bad teams or he's not played well.
I agree with that.
He beat a good team in the Chargers, and they needed that because they're only a game up on the Falcons in the division, and the Falcons have the tiebreaker. So if they finish tied with the Falcons.
Well, they have one. Don't they have one left with Atlanta?
No, they've played 2. They split.
They did.
The Falcons have the tiebreakers. They have a better division record.
Yeah.
So listen, I'm not. Baker's.
They may not make the playoffs. It's possible.
They might not.
But their schedule.
And by the way, I'll say this:
easy.
if they don't make the playoffs,
they have Carolina, New Orleans, and somebody else. That
Baker has contributed to their losses at times with his interceptions. However, I think he is a small percentage of the blame. If they don't make the playoffs, it's more that their defense isn't particularly great.
Would you say that he has a 0% chance of ever winning a Super Bowl?
No, I'd never say 0, but...
Well, would you get a tattoo of Baker?
I'm not getting a tattoo ever, but I think...
Would you get a temporary Baker tattoo on your forearm if they win the Super Bowl?
No tattoos.
No, temporary. It would wash off.
Okay, I got a temporary Baker tattoo. As long as it definitely washes off.
It would wash off, but listen, the visual of you coming in after the Super Bowl
with a
Baker tattoo on your forearm might be one of the best images I ever see in my life.
And if Baker makes a Super Bowl and loses, Jay, you got to get a Joe Burrow.
Done.
Yeah.
Not a permanent.
Now,
I'm not putting anything into my body.
Baker, again, he's playing well. He never played this well as he's played in Tampa here. And I'm not kidding. I like Dustin said, I think he had to hit rock bottom to get up.
I agree with that.
And so maybe he would have never played.
You know what we won't know? Because you said this earlier. What we won't know is, would something else have precipitated his maturation?
We don't know. Yeah.
I don't know that either.
I will say that as much as I rail against him, a lot of the reason, like I just thought he was so obnoxious when he was here, and it really rubbed me the wrong way.
Arrogant, obnoxious, same guy that stuck the flag in the in the block.
I think the way he talks now in the press conferences and I think I don't have those feelings about him anymore. I think he really has
a lot more
matured.
likable. He's a lot more likable.
He's more likable. I do have respect for him. I think he's definitely a starting quarterback. As much as I was down on him, I never thought he was not one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah.
Now, I think he's a little higher than I thought he was going to be because he's played in Tampa. I still don't buy over the years that he's a top 12 quarterback.
29?
He's been in the league for what, 7 years?
This is his seventh.
Is it 2018?
Yeah, 7th year. This is his 7th year.
Okay, let me
and
ask
he's
you
about
this.
to go to the playoffs almost half of the years he's been in the league.
Be his third trip.
Third out of 7.
Let me ask you this, Bull.
Yeah.
Not
Because
bad.
somebody asked me this.
He spent a lot of those years in Cleveland.
He did.
I had a media friend call me and say, "What should we expect from Baker?" And I said, "Everything." And they laughed. They said, "What does that mean?" And I said, "Some days he'll be in a great mood. Other days he'll be in a shitty and attacking mood. He will come after you guys.
Yeah.
He will. When things are going well, you're going to love him. But when things hit rock bottom, you're going to hate him because that's how his moods run.
Yeah.
He's a guy that's driven by winning. He's motivated. He loves the chip on his shoulder. He loves it. But what to expect, I think, in general, is a really immature guy. This same person had a conversation with me about week 6 this year when things were looking better for them. It was right either before or at the time of the Godwin and Evans injuries.
Yeah.
When I thought at that point they're not going to make the playoffs.
Right.
We were having another conversation about him. He goes, "You know what? I got to tell you, I'm not seeing the Baker you saw."
No.
And I said, "Okay, tell me what you're seeing." And he explained it. And then he answered my question with an answer of his own, or a question with his own. He said, "Jay, I want you to go back when you were 23 years old. What was 23-year-old Jay Crawford like? And how is he different from 28 or 29-year-old Jay Crawford?" And I said, "Wow."
Sure. That's true.
Me personally, I was 15 when I was 23.
That's
and when I was 29, I was probably 22.
Now, that's true.
I was wildly immature.
But you could say that about any quarterback, and a lot weren't as immature. However,
and people.
In his defense, last thing, G, I know I've talked a lot. In his defense, obviously there's some wacky stuff going on with his family that has affected him.
And stuff we didn't even know about at the time it was going on.
So
that's a fair point to bring up.
Since we are so forgiving and we understand that people get better, does Deshaun Watson have that opportunity?
Bring him back.
No, listen, that's why I asked the question earlier, are we robbing him of an opportunity? And I'm not advocating for bringing him back. Under no circumstances do I want any more of that.
You want him to get better on somebody else's own time.
Here's the thing. What he is trying to overcome is a slight erosion of his skills, a lot of critical injuries to his most important parts. Shoulder,
two of the most devastating injuries.
Yes, that a quarterback can have.
Not just any human being.
A quarterback in the right shoulder socket.
And Baker had
that
so
for
it's
sure.
And by the way, that's not the top of the list. What he's trying to overcome, he's trying to overcome what he believes to be an unfair lynching by the media and by the fan base. In his mind, it's unfair. I'm not saying it's unfair. He believes it's unfair.
Someone say that Tony Busby's his whole reputation has been sullied a little bit.
Listen, his stock is going down.
Did we ever think highly of Tony Busby?
He's been going after a lot of people.
If there was a red arrow or a green arrow next to someone's reputation,
I mean,
the arrow next to his right now is huge red, and it's going down.
Sure.
And
one other big difference.
This is the guy who literally derailed the career of a top 5 to 10 quarterback in the NFL. Left him in shambles. And so I think everybody does deserve a redemption story.
Yeah.
But
I just don't want it to be here.
There's another big
last point. Then
big distinction between, besides the off the field stuff between Baker and Deshaun, is that Baker was bad for 2 seasons. Deshaun missed the season and has been bad for 3 seasons since then.
Right.
So by next year it'll be 5 years since he was good, and he's older. So no.
Yeah.
I don't see it.